the Japanese internet, there's a fascination with what are known as extinct sites. Web pages that once thrived at the center of online conversation, but in the passing decades, have since vanished without a trace. Many of these sites featured flash content that often is no longer available online. Some survive only in archives, others are remembered solely through the abundance of testimonies and fragmented conversations of those who had once visited them. Some of these sites were unusual, almost disturbingly so, and the majority still remain shrouded in mystery. Today, we're gonna scan through some notable examples. The first one being a webpage known as Gunkit, which means eyeball. It was a creepy homepage once hosted on the AAA Cafe, Live Doors free web service. There are web pages and personal sites documenting forbidden search terms that describe the site itself as having a background full of eyeballs. Some eyes would turn red whenever hovered over with the mouse, and clicking a red eye triggered a strange and frightening flash animation. Some of these animations were more horrific and jarring than others. There was nothing else, no text, no information or additional visuals, just the overabundance of these eyeballs. It's not known who designed the webpage and what purpose it held, if any. After AAA Cafe shut down, Gunkit disappeared from the live web. However, screenshots and archives still survive, and the flash animations can still be viewed for the most part with emulators like Ruffle. This means you can actually still experience most of this page today. Online commenters from when the site was still live have described the site as gross and creepy. There are also other users who had mentioned the sheer density of eyeballs felt overwhelming or phobic, potentially triggering trypophobia in some viewers. That being the discomfort of clustered holes, or in this case, eyes. That being said, if you do decide to look up the archive on your own, proceed with caution. While Gunkit was admittedly quite jarring, there are abandoned Japanese web pages that are far more disturbing. One of the more complex examples of unsettling flash sites had far more layers and depth, so much so that it was often described as the browser equivalent of a haunted house. And I will say that is a very accurate description. The site was a staple for many young people in Japan in the early 2000s. The site's name, you may be asking? Kyu No Yakata, or the House of Terror. It was an early internet horror site that became infamous for its disturbing content and the strong reactions it caused within its visitors. According to Japanese sources, the site was active in the 2000s and was originally hosted on GeoCities before later moving on to an FC2 domain. It has since been deleted, but many people still remember it through blog posts, forum discussions, and archived web pages. The site itself was designed like a collection of horror content. It included sections with scary videos, shocking images, and interactive games that often turned into jump scares. At first glance, it looked simple, with links in various categories, but clicking on anything could lead to something highly disturbing. Many of these links led to graphic or unsettling images, sometimes involving gore or psychological horror. Among the most talked about features back in the day was a hidden webpage called the Room of Dread, which users could only access by clicking a specific icon. The secret section contained even more extreme content and links to other infamous shock sites across the Japanese internet. Now, you may be wondering what kind of shock content was on there. Well, I recognize a few of the names simply because they are on the Do Not Search iceberg, so that should tell you something. What made the site especially creepy or intriguing was how it tricked its visitors. Many pages appeared harmless at first, like puzzles or images that encouraged users to look more closely. However, after a few seconds, there would be a loud noise or some kind of frightening image that would just, suddenly appear and scare the user. Now, jump scares were a very popular element of the internet at this point in time, so that in itself is not surprising. Now, some of these jump scares would include shock images, graphic visuals, and unsettling themes. The experience was often described as overwhelming to many, especially for younger users who would often dare each other to go on this webpage. Many users describe their memories of this site, some people even being quite nostalgic for it. There was one blogger that even remembered a specific image called "the picture that makes you perish if you see it." That specifically left a strong impression on them, even years later. I think I can understand why. There's some that recalled browsing the site with friends at school or at home. Some testimonies are more physical in their description of fear. For example, one user wrote on a wiki comment that when they were in elementary school, they were watching the site with friends when a face suddenly appeared on screen. It scared them so badly that they fell off their chair and hit their head. Now, when it comes to this specific topic, I was keen on trying to find personal experiences and testimonies regarding it, as it was very popular. And while it's sometimes difficult to find these kinds of testimonies with certain topics, I can easily say there was an abundance of testimonies when it came to the House of Fear. Now, despite the site's reputation, there is no real evidence that the site was dangerous beyond its shocking content, and by that I mean curses or viruses that could infect the computer. Oh, you can't really prove that first element, can you? When you dig through these old abandoned web pages, you often find personal details about people that were long forgotten. Old emails, real names. I mean, look at the original TikTok.com. It was originally a family's personal diary, basically. And a lot of this stuff was probably forgotten about completely as the years and even decades went on. This data can still get scraped, resold, or passed around to data brokers. And that's honestly pretty scary. But see, that's why I'm glad today's video is sponsored by Aura. Aura is an all-in-one online safety app that keeps an eye on your personal information for you. It monitors data breaches and the dark web, and sends you real-time alerts if your info shows up somewhere it shouldn't, like leaked passwords, emails, and other sensitive data. And from there, Aura actually walks you through what to do next to secure your accounts. Try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/SakuraStardust. In those 2 weeks, Aura will get to work scrubbing your personal data off these data broker sites. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Here's another one that's arguably even more cryptic. This webpage even carried within it a dark narrative. See, in the early 2000s, a strange Flash-based webpage titled "Koko wa doko no Hakoni wa ja," roughly meaning, "So where is this miniature garden?" appeared on the Japanese internet as part of a personal website run by somebody known as Gyota. This was an interesting little site, one with a story that progressed as you explored the pages of it. It became memorable for many users because, unlike ordinary static pages, it had that unique hook. At first glance, the site looks like a typical personal webpage from that era, which were quite common, with photos, a diary, introductions, and a visitor counter, which was common on personal web pages back in around 2003. But the story within the web page begins when a visitor accidentally hits the 10,000th access milestone, known as a kiriban. This triggers the narrative sequence. The page invites that visitor to write on an in-page bulletin board if they had reached that milestone. But because the bulletin board for some reason doesn't allow inputs due to a design quirk, it's meant to confuse the player. See, every visitor is the 10,000th visitor that's part of the narrative. As visitors read through the website's various pages, including the diary and other linked content, the story reveals increasingly odd and unsettling little quirks. For example, the diary entries contain unusual remarks and interactions. There are commenters like Manami, who seems to interact intimately on the bulletin board as if they know the administrator personally. And then there's another user who goes by Jun, who is often involved in conversation on the site. One of the memorable aspects of this webpage is that at one point, the bulletin board has entries that appear on their own, as if written without any input, without any person typing them in and sending them off. It makes you think this is some kind of strange glitch, or even a supernatural presence beyond normal control. These unnatural web pages naturally raise questions about whether someone else is manipulating the board. Gyota, the site's creator, has nothing to do with any of this. and becomes increasingly disturbed as the events unfold. Eventually, the narrative reveals a bit of a twist. The story suggests that a character named Hiropi, a friend that comes over to fix a computer problem for the creator of the site, discovers that the computer is connected to the internet despite having no configured network connection. It wasn't connected to the internet at all. You learn this as you browse the site, and it leads to further unease for the site's administrator. It becomes more and more clear that, something ain't right here. Pages change unexpectedly. Photos may show altered images that change over time on their own, and characters' identities and intentions become ambiguous. It's mentioned that Gyota's presence seems to dissolve. Meaning, both within the story and symbolically on the site, they just fade out and stop contributing at all. From there, according to these accounts, the webpage became more and more unstable. Unlike typical shock pop-up sites or jump scares, you know the ones if you were around during that time watching those types of things, this was kind of a long-term experience, one that garnered emotional appeal and got you hooked and engrossed in what was going on. And it drew a lot of attention because of its slow, story-driven progression. They weren't obvious, they just kinda happened, like things come and go naturally in everyday life, which was probably very scary to see on the internet back in 2003. Things weren't too complex or advanced back then at all, trust me. Don't be mistaken, however. There are plenty of examples of sites like this that are truly now inaccessible and not archived in any capacity, including a rather gory site known as Uchimino Demo Tape, or the Hollowed Insects Demo Tape. It wasn't directly labeled as a horror site, but the site itself remained eerie nonetheless. The pages combine text and images in a nonlinear story, written like a diary from the perspective of a man, implied to be an assailant to a crime. This man used weirdly affectionate words about a girl, and that made the story deeply unsettling. There are hints of murder, and even disposing of a body. And one image of a bleeding girl left many users, when the site was still alive, with a lasting, disturbing impression. The site itself wasn't really that complex, though. As a matter of fact, users also described the site as looking like something a beginner in programming could have made. Despite this, the story and images alone were enough to make viewers very much uneasy. The narrative never explains everything clearly, and that leaves each reader making up their own interpretation, though none of these interpretations ever ended up being pleasant. The man, the speaker within the story, their unnatural affection towards the victim makes the whole thing feel incredibly twisted. Nonetheless, the site did garner a small fan base while it was active and up. Some fans speculated that the person running the site was a denpa, or somebody a bit disconnected from reality. The original site is now gone, not even archived in any way. All that remains now are testimonies and comments, as well as a recorded playthrough video by a user named Yokto on YouTube. This video does show a great deal of the site's visuals, but the site itself can no longer be accessed in any way. Now, a site doesn't have to be obscure to be completely lost and unarchived. As a matter of fact, this next case is easily the most well-known in this video. Despite that, it remains as elusive as it is infamous. The Akai Heya, which means red room in Japanese, is a well-known internet urban legend that spread through the early Japanese web in the late 90s and early 2000s. And its origin is a very real webpage. It was tied to a belief regarding a mysterious webpage or pop-up that could cause terrible consequences for anyone who had encountered it. It was tied to a belief about a mysterious webpage or pop-up that could cause terrible consequences for anyone who had encountered it online. The story was widely shared on message boards, blogs, and later became part of Japanese internet folklore and horror culture. So much so that it's also well known in the English-speaking world as well. The legend centers on a seemingly ordinary pop-up window that appears while a person is browsing the internet. This pop-up has a bright red background, the kind of red that hurt your eyes, especially if you're in a darkened room. With simple text asking a question like, "Ski desu ka?" which translates to, "Do you like it or do you like this?" The question looks incomplete at first or lacking context, but as the user tries to close this pop-up, the same window reappears repeatedly. Each time it returns, it adds more to the question until it eventually reads, "Anata wa akai heya ga suki desu ka?" or "Do you like the red room?" According to different versions of the legend, which there are quite a few different versions, what happens next is what made it frightening to many people online. After the final question is displayed and the pop-up is closed or interacted with, the entire screen is said to turn red, and a list of names appears. These names supposedly include all of the victims who had encountered the red room thus far. And the legend claims that the viewer's own name will eventually show up at the bottom of the list. Some versions add that the person will sense a mysterious presence behind them before the screen changes. The scariest part of the story, in many retellings, is how it ends. The legend says that the person who saw the pop-up will later perish. In the most commonly shared version, the walls of the room in which they are discovered are painted red with blood, as if the room itself turned red after this encounter. Other retellings even claim that cracks will appear on the person's body, or that the user themselves are eventually compelled to be the one that causes their own demise. Due to the influence of the webpage, regardless of the version, the tale was a common facet of 2000s internet forums. Although the Flash file and the original webpage are no longer accessible because GeoCities shut down, the animation is considered among the earliest known versions of the Red Room narrative. Also, side note, the urban legend itself is similar to the NNN special broadcast urban legend. Now, the Red Room legend became especially well known when it was linked in public discussion to a real crime in 2004, to a tragic incident known as the Sasebo slashing, where a young girl murdered her classmate. This incident gained widespread media attention. Reports noted that the perpetrator had bookmarked the Red Room flash animation on her computer shortly before the crime itself. While this connection does not prove any supernatural cause, of course, it made the legend even more infamous in Japan and intensified public curiosity as well as fear. The story itself has endured online, over 2 decades later. If you enjoyed this video, I would also like to announce that there is an uncensored Patreon cut with an additional segment that was a little too much for YouTube to handle over on my Patreon. It's up either now or within the next day or two. Just check the pinned comment and link in the description to see if it's ready, but it's almost ready, it's cooking. But yeah, link will be in the description as well as the pinned comment. By the way, I also stream regularly on Twitch with my VTuber, so head on over to twitch.tv/SakuraStarVTuber if you are into that kind of thing. We talk about lost media and stuff quite often. It's kind of a thing around there. Anywho, hello everyone. It's been a minute, hasn't it? I do want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for your support and patience throughout the past few months where I haven't been able to upload. I've been dealing with a lot with my health, I'll be honest here, and I've just had to prioritize and put that first before I could make any more long-form content. But I am doing better now. Not completely better, actually. I am still dealing with some stuff health-wise, but the TLDR of it is I'm doing better and I'm back to making long-form content again, so look forward to more videos, finally. Anyways, huge thank you to Alex Blackburn Makida, Iro Bryan, Cesor, Mono, Benny Fajardo, Creature Feature, Alex Heaven and Earth Shall Bow, Buddy Kitcher, Squidges, Nick Stuckenborg, Rambo Rao, Andrew Pashka, Justin, Night Tripper, William Baker, Javier Alajo, John R., Torian Gales, Disco Yeti, I'm Just a Cop, Monty Pla, Misato Sumimasa, Mugen, Ghetto R, Vanessa, Yoyoite, Yoyoite. Had to switch gears to the other line. Raglan Furry Head Dog, Erlyn Knifeflat, Connor McLaughlin, Shelfie, Stephen Bride, Creepy Alini, Lucille Brown, Pigpen, Newt Fruit Shoot, Hexmaniac Hana, Chitoge, Jeremiah BLR, 322, Nora Moraso, Ellie L, Flo Ami, Meek, Sidnep, Hosea Doroka, Kelly, Red Hoodie 50, Kalasiza, Iggs, C Chameleon, Digital Dub, Shivam Vashi, Pan Fried Life, Jack and Awareness, Stadio VTM, Argua Bill, Leon X8, Christopher Valencia, PP Pascatag, Matt's House, Airfire, Grand Tactician Soko, and Bishon Knife. I am so back. I am so glad to be back. Thank you so much for being patient with me also on Patreon. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video or stream. I do recognize some of these names on stream over on Twitch. But yeah, see you in the next video or whatever. Bye, guys.